And remember that as you enter, please place here present, but place it onto my WhatsApp number. I'll put my WhatsApp number in the chat for you. So that's 428-8971. So place here or present, send it to my WhatsApp number. Alright, so it's almost time to begin. Only a few persons are sending the here or present. Please do that. The numbers inside the WhatsApp chat. I haven't seen anything from Sean Sanders. I haven't seen anything from Seth. I haven't seen anything from, well, Kennedy, I know your situation. Destiny, I know your situation. I don't see nothing from Nancy. And I don't see nothing from Michelle. Please make sure that you place here or present. You send it to my WhatsApp number. Alright, can you all hear me properly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Alright, that's good. Alright, so it's 6:01, so we definitely could start. Remember, for those persons who are just joining, make sure place here or present in my WhatsApp chat box. Okay, it's important also that you do send your notes in. I noticed that a lot of persons are not sending in notes. Please, if you're here, send the notes to my WhatsApp number. I want to know that you're here and that you're following along, and I want to see what you're writing, right? So make sure send in the notes. All right, please do not be in class and don't send it. I noticed that some people that write the notes but don't send me them. Make sure if you're writing it, let me know that you're writing it, okay? Otherwise, I would have no record, okay? So please make sure I do that. All right, so tonight we are going to transition, right? From basically all this week we've been looking at linear equations and their graphs, okay? Looking at, how they are formed, what is the slope, what is the y-intercept, all those things, all right? And hopefully we should be good at that. But tonight I want to switch things over. It's not a major switch. In fact, these two topics are connected, but we're going to be looking at inequalities, all right? We're going to be looking at inequalities, and it's a good transition because when we look at linear graphs and then we look at inequalities, what happens is that you're going to need the ideas from linear equations to do your inequalities. And so I think it's a good transition. It's an easy transition to transition over to inequalities. Remember that as you enter, for those who are just entering, please place here or present into my WhatsApp chat. Please do that. Make sure you do that. Some persons are here and they have not done that. Please do that. Alright, but before we actually get into that, what I want to do is I want to look at something that I was looking at, something that we had an issue with, and we was trying to figure out. It was this equation. It was this equation. Sorry, there was this graph, and I was trying to figure out why is the slope -1, okay, and I was trying to connect that with the idea of this graph. Why is this -1, and why is this -1 when it seemed that our slope was off? But then I realized that if we look carefully on the x-axis, they're counting in twos. So this is 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Okay, and so 0, -2, -4, -6. So they're not counting in ones, but on the y-axis we're counting in ones. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So when we check for our slope, say for example we start at -3, all right, and remember that the slope is -1. So -1 tells us that, so m is our slope, that's -1 over 1. The -1 tells us that we go one time downwards, and this 1 tells us that we go one time to the right. And so what that means is that if we were to start at our y-intercept, we would go once downwards, so that we'll go down, bring us to the -4. But then we'll go, yes, mom?
Mr. Petit, you ain't sharing your screen.
No, you can't be true. You don't want to tell me that? Oh my. Oh
I thought it
my.
was just me,
It's
so
okay.
I wanted to
I was about to say feel the matching in the numbers, but I was
What in the world? Oh my. Alright. Oh wow. Okay, so alright, so I have to start over. Pretty a good thing, because I'm sure that some of you need to hear it again. That's fine. What I was saying is that we had a problem with this equation, with this graph, right? And the problem that we had was that we were trying to figure out, well, why is this -1? Why is the slope -1? And how does it correlate to the graph? But I'm going to show you how. Notice that on the y-axis we're counting in one, so this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5. So we're counting in ones. Sorry, let me allow these persons to come in. So on the y-axis we're counting in ones, but if you look at the x-axis, if you look at the x-axis, sorry, if you look at the x-axis, we're counting in twos. So this is 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and so on. So that's very important. So notice that there's a difference in counting. So we have to be careful when we're looking at our slope. So here we have -3. So this is going to be, if we remember what our slope means, our slope is -1. So that's -1 over 1. And what that means is that we're going to go down how much times? Say it again.
one time.
One time, very good. We're going to go down once. And since our bottom number is 1, we're going to go to the right how much times?
One time.
One time. So if we go down once, and if we go across once, we would land here. The reason why we would land here is because notice that this is between 0 and 2. And so between 0 and 2 is definitely 1 in the middle there. So 1 would be here. Okay? So then we would land at a point on our graph. And then if we go down and right, we'll land at another point on our graph. So that means that the slope is definitely -1. Let me say that again. So the slope is -1, which means that if we go down once and to the right once, we should land at a point on our graph. And again, if we go down once and to the right once, we again land at a point on our graph. So it is true that the slope is -1. I just wanted to point that out before we move to another idea. That's something from yesterday. So alright, so let's begin class for the day. We're gonna start off very easy. I mean like tremendously easy. I'm talking about like tremendously easy, and then we're gonna build up. We're gonna build up speed. So if you don't understand the first part, please let me know. I assume that the first part is very easy. So if you don't understand the first part, then that means that we really need to be clearing that up before we move forward. Okay, remember, for those persons who are just joining us, make sure please place here or present. Send it to my WhatsApp number. My WhatsApp number is inside the comment section. Also, I noticed that a lot of persons are not sending in the notes. Please make sure that you're sending in the notes for me. All right, make sure that you're sending in the notes. All right, so let's begin with this one. This one should be very straightforward. You could write down the question, and then write down the answer. But these should be very straightforward. Okay, so it says circle the possible values that satisfy each inequality. All right. I want us to read this out because if we don't know how to read this out, we are going to be in plenty problems. Can someone read this? What does this say? How do we say it in words?
X is greater than 7.
Seven.
Very good. So let me write that out. And please write it out because some persons have an issue with that idea. What this is saying is this is read as X is greater than is greater than. So it's read X is greater than 7. So please notice that idea because we're gonna be continuously using that symbol. So make sure you understand what that's saying. So this is saying X is greater than 7. This symbol, right? This is the greater than symbol. It's saying that X is greater than 7. And it makes sense because well in primary school we learned that the alligator eats the bigger value. So you could look at this as the mouth of an alligator. That's how I remember it. And the mouth of the alligator is going to eat the bigger number. So here we're saying that whatever X is, we don't know what X is, but whatever X is, it's going to be bigger than 7. Okay, again, whatever X is, it's going to be bigger than 7. And so with that idea, what number or numbers should we circle? Um,
Eight.
8.
Eight.
Very good, 8. So the answer is 8 for this one. So write down the question and write down this question out properly, and then write down how we have it, and then write down the correct answer. Now 2 is not going to work. Why 2 isn't going to work? Can someone tell me why 2 isn't going to work?
It's less than 7.
Yeah, 2 is less than 7. Okay. How about 6?
Same reason.
Less
Less
than
than
7.
For the
7.
same reason, and the same thing for 5. Okay. All right, so that's important. So this is very, very, very important. Now we come to something else. This one is interesting. I wonder if someone could read this for me properly. The second one.
X is less or equal to 10.
X is what?
Less than or equal to 10.
Very good, very good. They're saying it correctly. So that's very important. This is saying this. We read this as. Let me put it here somewhere. We read this as X is a less than, because remember the alligator, the opener part of the alligator mouth is pointing to 10, so that means that this part right here is less than, so X is less than 10. But notice we have this underlying portion, this line underneath the symbol. So it's not only saying that, not only is it saying that X is less than 10, so X is less than, but it's also saying that X is less than or equal to 10. So X is less than or equal to 10. That's what that symbol means. Okay, X is less than or equal to 10. All right, so with that in mind, now this is very important. They're saying circle all the possible values for which this could work. So will it work for 7?
No.
Is
Yes.
7 less
Yes.
than?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it will work for 7. It will work. Yes, it will work for 7. Will it work for 16?
No.
No. Why? Why wouldn't it work for 16?
16
Because
is
it's
greater
greater
than
than 10.
10.
16 is greater than 10. Will it work for 4?
Yes.
Yes, definitely, because 4 is less than 10. Now, would it work for 10? Think about this now. Would it work for 10?
Yes,
Yes, it would work with 10. Why?
But it's
Because it's
equal to
equal to
10.
10.
Very good. It's because it's equal to 10. Okay, that's a very important idea. Okay, so this number x will take on values that are less than 10, or x will take on a value that is equal to 10. So 10 is equal to 10, so that works. Or if it's less than 10, that also works. All right, so please copy this down, and then when we reach the third one, after you finish the third one, then I'll want to see the notes that you are taking. Because like I say, a lot of persons are not taking notes, and that really is bothering me. I mean, that really is bothering me. Please, if you're here, take number one, take the notes. Number two, participate in class and send the notes. Because I notice that a lot of persons, or I should say, some persons, they take the notes but they don't send it. How I'm gonna know if you are following along, right? Okay, so let me see who am I missing? Sorry, give me one
Yes,
moment.
Mr. You want to send it now?
No, wait until we reach the number three.
I don't do now.
Bolag. All right. Jaden, you don't need your video on. That's fine. Okay, so all right, so let's work. Let's look at number. So let me put that. This is health science, right? Yesterday. That was good. And this is chemistry today. For those persons who did their chemistry work. Choke.
I
Or
will
and
do it.
bio and bio. For those persons who did it. Right, Nancy?
I didn't hear if you're sending an email. Sorry.
Now I was saying for those persons who did their work. Let me go. I mean the bio thing I sent you today. All right,
You
so
didn't tell me about bio. You sent me something for maths.
I sent you none. What?
You sent me
Okay,
maths.
I sent you none for bio. All right, that's my bad. Okay, well I meant to send it, but I'll do it right after I'm done. So now this one, how are we gonna read this? So how is this read?
Yeah. X is
X
less
is
than
less than
4.
4.
X is less than 4. Very good. So we read this as X is less than 4. Okay, so X is less than 4. Okay, so X is less than 4. Now we say we could say that X is strictly less than 4, because once we don't have the line underneath, we say it's strictly less than 4. And that all that means is that 4 is not included. Okay, so what would be the options that will work?
3
Would
and
3
1.
work?
3 and 1.
3 definitely will work, because 3 is
And
less
1.
than 4, and 1 would also work because 1 is also less than 4. But 6 will not work because 6 is bigger than 4. 9 will not work because 9 is bigger than 4. Okay? And so this is how we use inequalities, all right? And this is how we read it. It's very important that you know how to read it. Okay? Any questions on how to read these things?
No, sir.
No? Okay.
But so did I have a question?
Go ahead.
It only would be less than or equal to is less than or is greater than. It wouldn't be nothing else.
Um, the only thing the other one is that it's strictly equal to. So for example, if you have something where it say x is equal to 7, right? Then we know that it's none other than 7. Okay. Um, other than that, there's nothing. There's
Okay.
none else that you have to worry about. Okay, so that was the third one. Please send in the notes. Um, based on these three. please send in the notes based on these three. And that's everyone, please.
But T, you get mine to stay connected to me.
Okay, let me see. Alright, so send in the notes for those three that we have done. Alright, someone's asking to join. Okay. Alright, thank you for those who are sending them in. Alright, so let's move on to the other ones. Do we have to do these ones? We'll quickly do them. We won't really spend much time on them. We just talk through it. So for this one, what is the correct answer for this one?
14, 17.
Say 14 and 17. I agree because we read this as x is what? Greater than or equal to 13.
Or equal to 13.
Yeah. So that means that
14.
14 and 17 will work. Okay. 13 could also work. If 13 was here, it could also work. You understand that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On here we have 3 is, how do we read this, by the
3 is
way?
greater than
Three
x.
is greater than X.
3 is greater than x. That's interesting. What would be what values of x would work for this one? 3
1.
is greater.
1.
1.
Yeah, 1. Yeah, 1. 8 wouldn't work because 8 is bigger than 3. 6 wouldn't work for the same reason. And 5 wouldn't work. Alright, I like that one. They switch it around. And here we have, how do we read this? How do we read this one?
8 is greater than or
No,
equal to X.
no, no. We
X
usually,
X is greater than or equal to 8.
yeah, we usually read it from, we start from the left hand side, we go to the right. That's how we usually read it. Now that you can't read it the other way, we just usually start from this side. So it will be x is less
8,
than or
9,
equal to 8. So definitely 8 would be the answer here. 8 could work,
7.
and 7.
9.
Alright, 9 and 10 would not work. How do we read this?
17 is
17 is
greater than
greater or
or
equal
equal
to
to
X.
the X.
Very good. So 17 is going to be greater than or equal to x. And so that means that 9. So you want something less than 17. 12. Alright, these are going to work. Moving right along. So we have x is less than 15. And so since we want less than 15, it's going to be 14. And it's going to be just 14.
14.
Just 14. X is greater than 2. X is greater than 2.
6, 4,
6 and 5.
6. Yeah, 6, 4, and 5. Okay. Alright, so are these inequalities clear for everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. Alright, so let's pick it up a notch. Alright. Because these were simple. Let's add some difficulty to it. So we have, okay, so we have already, completed those inequality statements. That's fine. Let's graph them. We're gonna graph them on a number line, and I really need to see your answers for these ones. They love to bring these ones too, so make sure you know how to do this one. So we're gonna graph the inequality. Alright, so let's go on our display board. So you want to graph the inequality. So we're going to start off graphing in one dimension. And when I say one dimension, I mean along the x-axis or in the x direction. That means from left to right. So we're going to really try to get an understanding on how to graph in one dimension. That means, from left to right in the x direction across. Once we get a good understanding on how to graph from left to right, then we can start to do it in two dimensions. That means we're going to do it along the x and y axis. Now for the Bgcse, you don't need to know how to graph in 3 dimensions. So we just need to focus on 1 dimension and 2 dimension. Okay, so let's do it. So how do we read this?
X
X
is
is
greater
greater
or
or
negative
than
2.
negative
or
2.
equal to negative.
Very good. So it's saying that x is greater than or equal to -2. And so the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to go to -2. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to place a circle above -2 to indicate that, hey, that's the value that we are considering. Now, are we going to shade in this circle, or are we just going to leave it open? Are we going to shade it? We're going to shade it. The reason why we're going to shade it is because of what?
Is the starting point
Equal to, because it's equal
Yeah,
to.
because it says equal to. That means we include -2. So that means we have to shade it. If it was x is strictly greater than -2, then we would have no need to shade in it. Okay? But because they say that it's greater than or equal to, that means that 2 can be included. So we must shade it in. Okay, so let's shade
excuse
that.
me. Are the circles necessary in the BJC?
Yeah, the circles are necessary. The circles are necessary.
Um,
Alright, so once we have that like that, we have to include all the numbers that are going to be, think now, greater than -2. So will we go in this direction, or will we go in this direction?
right.
Right?
We're going to go to the right. Why?
Because the
Because
negative numbers are greater than
negatives are
positive.
lesser than positive.
Because think
You gotta
about
go
it.
to the right because the numbers are greater than -2
Very good.
and equal
Because
to.
think about it. 6 is greater than -2. I mean, 4 is greater than -2. 2 is greater than -2. I mean, it's better to have $6 than to owe someone $2, right? And it's better to have
Yes,
$4 than to owe someone $2. And it's certainly better to have no money than to owe someone. So that means that since we want all the values that are greater than -2, we're gonna go over to the right. Right, so that's a very important observation. And so that means that we are going to shade all of this. So we're going to draw a line that extends all the way out. And that's our answer right there.
that's how you're supposed to do it, I guess. How you do it.
Just like how I do it. Yes.
So that's how you're supposed to do it in the exam.
Yes, that's how you're supposed to do it in the exam. So if they ask you to graph that inequality, you graph it just like that. Now, this is one way. There's another way we could do it. But we're gonna learn about that in the next section. That's what we call using interval notation. All right. Anyone familiar with interval notation here?
No, sir.
No.
No.
No. Dr. You did interval notation, right?
No, so
I know, true. When you see it, you'll know.
I think so, but I don't think the name just
The name,
ring,
eh?
but I know when
The
you ringing a bell.
name ain't ringing a
Ringing a
bell.
bell.
Yeah. All right.
But I know, so I think we did it.
You think we did it? Okay. There's another way to do this one though. What I mean is, you know, besides interval notation, what we could do is we could take the same graph, and both answers are correct, by the way. So both ways that I'm doing is also correct. So what you could do is, instead of shading it on top, which is the way I really prefer, you could shade it at the bottom. So you could shade it right on the number, okay? And then once you shade it right on the number, you could extend it. You'd extend it to go straight across, right on the line. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Oh, sorry, another way. So this way is correct. Give me one moment, Miss Cooper. This way is correct. and this way is also correct. Both ways are accepted. All right. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Nema.
Okay. All right. So I want to see this first one from everyone. Send me a picture of it. Let me see how you graphed it. Let me see if you understand what's happening. Please do not develop the habit of not singing in the notes. Some of you have already developed that habit. And I could call names because I'm looking at the register right in front of me. And so please make sure to send in your notes. All right. Remember, this is not a face-to-face class, so I cannot see you writing. I cannot see it. So I need to have an understanding of where you are, what you're doing, and are you here? Are you paying attention? And also, is your work also correct? So that I could be able
I
to
used to
correct
have a
it.
question.
Go ahead.
So the only time we have to circle the number is when we deal with negative. Or we have
No,
to
no,
do
you
both.
always circle the number. You always circle the number,
No, circle the
regardless
thought.
if it's, yeah, regardless if it's positive or negative. Again, I say you could circle it at the top or the bottom. It doesn't matter. Both are correct.
All right.
But you shade it depending on whether if it's a line or not. So if there's a line at the bottom, like we have this line at the bottom, which means or equal to, that means you have to shade it in. But if there's no line at the bottom, then you don't have to shade it in. And we can consider an example like that.
All right.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. So let's graph another inequality. All right. Perfect. The very next example is that. So example number 2. All right. So example number 2.
You did. I can't see example number 2.
You can't see example number 2.
No.
You can't see. So you can't see my
I
screen.
could see it
I
now.
can see it now.
I did have it
Oh.
showing now.
Oh, okay. So it dipped. Okay. All right. Okay. So example number 2. Let me just fix up what we have. Good. So here, this is the one we wanna draw, and you could try it on your own. For those who are just entering, please place here or present into the my WhatsApp chat. All right, and please, whatever you do, make sure send some notes. Even if you don't send all, send me something. Um, I don't need all. I just want to know that okay, they're here, they're doing something, and um, they're participating. Okay, so send me something, even if it's not the complete thing or the full notes, but send me something. Let me know that you're here and you're following along. Okay, so the next step here is that so how do we read this? Can someone tell me how do we read it?
X
I
is
mean, X is
less than 5.
X is, so let's read it properly. So this is gonna
Less
be,
than 5.
yes, X is less than 5. Okay. And when you think about numbers that are less than 5, what numbers come to mind immediately?
4, 3,
4,
2,
3,
1,
sorry, 4,
-1, -2,
-3, -4, -5, -6.
and so on. Right? So, and continuing, right? So, it's 5 included in this set. It's 5 included?
No.
No, 5 is not included because there's no line at the middle. Sorry, at the bottom. So we're saying x is strictly less than 5. That's another way to say it. X is strictly less than 5. And so for this one, we're going to do the same that we did, but only thing is that we're not going to shade it in. Okay, so we're going to go to 5. All right, we're going to put a big circle on top of 5. And then, and notice we don't shade it because it's strictly less than 5. 5 is not included. And then after that, we go straight across, okay, all the way. All right.
Miss, mistake, right?
Yes,
We
ma'am.
have to put all the numbers right. Like how once we have five and we say
Yeah,
that we
once
have
you
negative numbers,
yeah, once you
we
have
can't
some
do
negative
that.
numbers. No, 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 no. 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 That's the lazy Nancy speaking. But no, you don't have to do all that.
You only want to see the first one when we do, or you want to see all as we go?
You could send me all, that's fine. I have no problem. But I definitely want to see at least one from everyone. Alright. Mr. Sean Collins, please. I haven't seen anything from you yet. Sean Collins. Oh boy, you putting everyone on blast tonight, Eli. Uh Jonathan doesn't have a phone. Through email, yeah, through email. Alright. Okay. So x is less than 5. Okay, so that's one way we could do it. Remember another way we could do it? But in the exam, pick one way. Please pick one way. Don't do both ways. But there's another way we could do it. We could put the we could circle it here and we could send it this way.
Yeah, I'll pass in the foot.
Alright. Make sure that your mic are muted, please.
So would the question be just like that's on exam? BGCSE?
That's what they now for the BGCSE you gotta be careful. What they would do for the BGCSE, they would say they would say something like this. They would say, okay, 19 minus 2x is greater than say 15 or something like that. And then you have to solve this. And then when you solve it, you get something like x is less than 5. And then they'll say, okay, graph it now. Okay. So,
Repeat that one more time for me, please.
all right. What I was saying to him, to Ricardo, is that in the exam, they don't necessarily have to just say, okay, as simple as okay, graph it. What they could do, especially in the BGCSE, they like to do this. They love to do this. They would say, okay, first solve the inequality. So if they may give you something like 19 minus 2x greater than 15. And then when you solve it, you get, say, x is less than 5. And then they'll say, graph this. Okay? So that's what they would do.
I don't get the
Alright?
like 1 to 12.
What about BGC?
I mean, I
B-
get.
BJC, it wouldn't be that deep. BJC, they probably might just ask you to graph this thing straight out. You know?
Hope I don't understand that.
Alright? So, 5. Remember, for this one, you choose one of these. Alright? You choose one of these. Someone's mic is still on. Please make sure your mic is muted.
No.
Dante Mitchell. Alright. Alright, so yeah. So but the thing is that's based off of experience. But again, anything is fair game. Alright. The key idea is to know the concept.
I have a
You know,
question.
one moment, Kennedy. Know the concept. If you understand the concept, it doesn't matter what comes on the exam. Because in the exam they could flip things up, switch things up, but if you understand the concept, you could be able to get it. So I would say, especially for math, focus on understanding the concept. Focus on understanding the material well, so that if they switch it a little bit on you here and there, you could be able to handle it. All right. Go ahead, Kennedy.
Why you have it as 5? Is it supposed to be 4 because the line is not under the less than sign?
Why have it at 5? No, no, no. You always start at 5. The reason why, very good question. The reason why, right? The reason why we start at 5 is because we have to be careful. We are dealing with real numbers. We're not dealing with whole numbers. Simply, we're dealing with real numbers. So let's say, for example, would you say, Kennedy, would you say that if I have say 4.9993, right? Is that less than 5?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's less than 5, right? So if you start at 4, right? Um, you missing out this number. So that's why you start at 5 to say, hey, anything less than 5 could work, including
Okay.
decimals that are less than 5. Okay,
So will
so
decimals be like a part of this or no?
yeah, decimals are part of this because 4.999, I really don't want to get too deep in this, but 4.999 would be something like right here. It'll be close here, right? And so the idea is that anything, once it's not on 5, anything below 5 will work. That's the idea.
Okay.
All right. So that's the idea. Okay. Give me one moment, please. Okay, so let's move on to the other example. So these should be pretty, in my opinion, they should be pretty straightforward for us. Okay, let's do a nice one. Let's do say now let's do
Got
number
any
5.
complicated ones?
I mean, it doesn't get much complicated than this. I mean,
Hey, I
right?
have a question.
Go ahead.
You could do the one what would be on the BGCSE.
I don't have the BTCSC in front of me. See if I could do the
Alright.
one. That's funny. No, I mean we don't have access to the exam before it come out, you know. Um, I mean unless your parent, you know, writes the exam. In that case, you know.
So
Mhm.
what if we do one from a past paper?
We have done stuff on from a past paper before like this. That's coming up in the course. But I wanna develop this foundation first. Um, then we could get into those things. Okay, so x is so here we have x is less than negative 14, and so notice that it's not equal to, so it's strictly less than negative 14. And so the idea here, all we do is we go to negative 14, circle on top, and we want it to be less than negative 14. Less than. We can't go this way because if we go this way, um, these numbers are bigger than negative 14. We have to go this way, all right? Because these are the numbers that are less than negative 14. Because you're worse off if you owe someone $42 and if you owe someone $14. So definitely going to the left is less, right? It's less. The numbers get increasingly less, all the way to negative infinity, okay? And so here we go all the way to negative infinity, and here we go all the way to positive infinity, right? You know, you actually cannot reach to negative infinity or positive infinity because, you know, the farther you go, the more numbers still exist. But anyway, that's a topic for another time. Um, but we extend the line all the way to the left. Okay, so that's how this will work. So this is a graphical representation of x is less than negative 14.
So you wouldn't shade it in?
You wouldn't shade it in. The reason why you wouldn't shade it in is because it's not equal to. Alright?
So only if it's equal to, then you would shade it then.
Definitely. Only if it's equal to, then you shade it.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Alright, moving right along. Any questions before we move?
Hold on, me grab some blue. You take a picture of this one?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
I have it.
We good? Alright. Okay, so all of these are, oh, they have the answer key. Alright, so I think that we should all be pretty solid on this. Notice how they draw their ones though. They didn't do it above, they do it in. Like I said, that either one works. For this one, of course, we start at negative 2. it's greater than, it's shaded, notice that it's shaded, and so it continues on to positive infinity. Notice this one, strictly less than. So we do not shade in the 5. Okay, we continue on, and I think all these we should be pretty good with. There's nothing new here. All these ideas are good. For x is greater than 16, we know that we do not include the 16, so we don't shade it in, but we continue on. All right.
So, Mr. Fate, we always start from the number where it's given by just
Yes.
shade it in if it's equal to, and if it's strictly, then you don't shade it in.
Definitely. That's a very good observation. You always start at the number that you are given. So negative 10, we're going to start at negative 10, all right? And then we're going to continue all on. This is saying x is less than or equal to negative 10. So we're going to start at negative 10, always start at that number, whether it's shaded in or not. But here it's shaded because we have a line underneath. And then we're going to go to the left because we're trying to find numbers that are less than negative 10. Okay. All right, so that should be good. Any questions on that for me? Any questions?
No, sir.
No?
So, Mr. Betty, Elaine, the be now where it's just equal to.
Um, I mean, it could, but that's very uncommon. Um, very uncommon. If it's equal to, then it's just a dot at that point. That's all. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I wanted you to do the one in Bgcse form.
The one in BGC,
Yeah.
the one in BGCSE form. So you want me to do an actual past paper one? Like for the past
If you could.
paper. All right. For the past paper, who's speaking?
One.
Juan. Last name.
Meadows.
Juan Meadows. Oh, Juan Meadows. Oh, Juan Meadows. Okay. I familiar now. All right. Now I gotta remember which past paper that was on. We did it before. Um,
So this come every year in the past on
it
BGCSE?
usually comes. It usually comes. Let's see, paper 2. It's usually on paper 2. Um, this one is taking pretty long to load. Let me see if I can find one for you. Oh, someone is trying to join? Oh, okay. All right. Let me tell this thing to load up. If it's not in 2016, then tomorrow when we come, I'll find one for you. But it's usually in paper 2. Wait, let's let that load
I
up.
have the one we did in my book. It's just, I don't know where you got
You
it
don't know
from.
what's, yeah. Okay. Okay, so identifying the solution. All right, so the next one that we want to do is interval notation. So remember I said that there's another way to do it, and interval notation. All right, so we're gonna look at this one. Let's see if it comes up already. It's still loading. Let's give it a moment.
So, it's different weights. I thought it was only them.
It's different. No, it's different ways that we could express it. Um,
Oh.
yeah, it's different ways. Let's see. 2016 has it. All right. All right. This is a perfect one. So number 4. So notice how they come. No, they ain't have it. They ain't have it properly. No. I mean, they have it, but they ask a different question. They didn't ask you to graph it. They say here, write the solution set. Give me till tomorrow. I'll find one for you tomorrow. Because I don't want to take up too much time looking for it actually. But tomorrow
Okay.
I'll give you an actual one. But I mean, you're in good hands, man. We are preparing you for the exam. And so these foundational units are going to help you when the exam paper comes in front of you. And we will definitely do lots of past papers as we have been doing. Okay, so choose the correct interval that best describes each inequality. All right. It's very important to understand what these stuff mean, and so I'm going to spend some time explaining what they mean so that we can understand, how to use it, and stuff like that. So, all right. So let's begin. Before we actually even touch this question, there's some things that we need to understand about interval notation. So interval notation. So interval notation is just another way of writing inequalities, right? So with interval notation, we have the first thing is, we have let's say this is A and B, okay? So this is we have two,
Are you
we have
writing?
open.
Are you typing? Because I
I'm
can't see
writing.
anything.
You can't see anything.
Now it
It's
come
now?
up.
All right. Okay, all right. So the first thing is interval notation. The first thing part of interval notation is um when we have two open parentheses. Sorry, two open parentheses. I don't know. I can't remember if it's SIS or SES, but let's go with
Yes,
this.
it is.
But we have two open parentheses, and what that means is that you do not include the numbers at the boundary. And so if we have something looking like this, where we are going to use A and B to represent numbers, and we have one open like so, and the next one open like so, what that means is that you're not going to include the numbers at the boundary. Open means, open on parentheses always mean you do not include the number. So that means it's going to look something like this. So we're going to have on the number line, we're going to have 0 here somewhere. Let's say that A is right here and B is right here. Okay. What that means is, and we have here, the parentheses is open. Sorry, let me write that properly. The parentheses is open, and the parentheses here is open. So that means that we do not include the numbers A and B at the boundary. We do not include them. So that's what that would mean. So in this set, this set of numbers right here, we include everything inside the set, but except the numbers at the boundary, except the numbers in the middle. I mean, except the numbers at the end or at the endpoints. When we say boundary, we mean the endpoints. All right, let me show you what I mean. Let me know when
So you
you're
count
ready.
the zero, and you include the zero.
You include the ones in the middle, but you don't include the numbers at the endpoints or at the boundary.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, and out of the boundary.
and you don't include the ones outside either. So definitely you won't
Just the
include
middle.
these, but you won't include the endpoints, right? Let me give you a prime example. So let me know when you're ready for me to move this.
Yes, one.
All right, so all right, okay, this is a perfect time to take the attendance. Let me do it quickly. Okay, all right, so let me give you a prime example. Let's say we have say draw or graph the following set given in interval notation. So let's say we have -4. That's too much. I don't want to do all that. Let's say -2 and 5. All right. And so we want to graph that in interval notation. It's weird because it looks like the point -2, 5, but it's not a point. It's actually referring to a set of numbers. All right. The first thing that we want to do is we want to graph it out. We want to graph out our number line. All right. We want to make sure put our 0 there. Make sure identify -2 and make sure identify 5. And so what this means is that notice that we're going to have -2 for sure and 5 for sure, but we do not include we do not include -2 and 5. Okay, we do not include -2 and 5, so it's going to be like this and like that. All right. So we are referring to all the numbers that's in between. All right. So examples. So in the set, we're gonna have numbers like, we could have -1. We could have numbers like
1, 2, 3, and 4.
negative 0. I mean, it's not an exhaustive list, but negative 0.99. We can have 0. We can have 1. We can have 1.5. We can have 2. We can have 3, and so on, all the way up to 5. Sorry, no, we cannot have 5 inside of it. So we can't have 5. So we could have stuff like, we could have stuff like 4, 4.5, 4.99, 4.999, but never 5. Okay.
So, Mr. Biggie, what exactly, what number is that supposed to put inside there? Like, what number you're supposed to do?
What numbers we suppose? All these numbers are included, because what it's saying is that give me the numbers that are between -2 and 5. That's all I'm saying.
So you can put how much you want to put there.
Now, to be honest, they're not gonna ever ask you to list out the entire set because the set never ends, right? There is an infinite amount of numbers that could fit in the set. That's why you see me have this ellipse here to begin with, and I also have the ellipse to end, because we could never complete the set of numbers. But I just was given an example of stuff that are in it that could be a part of it. So, I mean, think about it. If I ask you to list out all the numbers that are between -2 and 5, can you tell me all?
No, sir.
No, you can't. All right.
Participle managers does this concept applies, but this kind of strategy.
Okay. Now, when does it apply? Very good question. It could apply when we are doing something like, say, for example, this one, and we are not using this representation, but we're using interval notation representation, and I'm going to show you how to do that. All right. So remember, we could use this representation, the one at the bottom, right? Or we could use interval notation like we are doing here. So let me give you another example. So let's say, for example, we want to graph. Can I move this, by the way?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right. So we want to graph the given set.
My screen freeze.
My screen froze. Graph the given set. It still froze?
No, sir.
All right. in interval notation. All right, so let's say, for example, we have something like, say, it don't have to be negative first. We could start at 0, and let's say we end at 4. Both are open, so that means that we are going to include all the numbers that are between 0 and 4. All right, remember 0 and 4 are not included, so open here and open here. So this is telling me that I must include all the numbers.
So the brackets have to be on top of the number?
Yes, it have to. That's
Okay.
what the interval notation is. It have to be right there. So include all the numbers that are between. It's very important. That are between 0 and 4. And to be honest, this is actually an easier way of doing things, because if we were to write this in inequality form, anyone know how we would write this in inequality form if we had to write it? Like, instead of interval notation, anyone know how we could write it in inequality form?
Um,
It would have
Maybe
been
like
harder.
Probably
say
like
all the numbers between maybe all the numbers that are equal to or less than 4.
No, like, okay, the way how we would write it, right? We'd have to write it like this. We'd have to say 0 less than x less than 4. That's how we would have to write it if we had to write it in interval notation. So what this is saying, if we had to write it in inequality form, this is saying that x is greater than 0. So x is greater than 0, but x is also less than 4. Again, this is saying x is greater than 0, but x is also less than 4. So this is it in inequality form, but this is it in interval notation. And if you ask me, interval notation looks better, right? But they mean the same thing, right? They mean the same thing. Any questions on that?
so you would read that as zeros less than x and x is less than 4.
Yes, we read it like that. Or we could read it from the middle going to the left, and then from the middle going to the right. So we can say x is greater than 0 and x is less than 4. Okay.
Okay.
Do it.
But this is another way like doing an inequality itself?
Yeah, it's another way to represent the inequality itself. Yeah. It's,
Okay.
to be honest, it's, what's his name? Ricardo asked for if there's any more to it, and I didn't remember, but there is. Like, first we was just thinking about one inequality, right? But how about if we wanted to represent two inequalities at once, right? This is what it is. This is two inequalities together. So this is x is less than 4, and it's also x is greater than 0. It's two inequalities together, right? What it's saying is that, it should be clear. X is, or the number is between 0 and 4. Is that clear? Is that idea clear to you all? Can you all see it?
Yes, sir.
Or we need another example
You can
to
repeat
really,
that so give an example.
another example. Okay, so we need another example. All right, so let's use another example. Someone's mic is on. Please ensure that your mic is
For that
muted.
one, you could just put 1 to 1 2.
Pardon?
I say for that one, like if they ask for the numbers between 0 and 4, you could just put 1 2 and 3.
All right, think about this, Miss Cooper. What about 1.5?
You have to put all of them like with
That's what I'm
numbers.
saying. They would never ask you to list all the numbers in between because it's infinite. And the only thing they could say, they might say list all the natural numbers in between. In that case, it'll just be 1, 2, and 3. Okay. But they'll never ask you to list all the numbers in between because, of course, it's infinite numbers. Okay, let's use another example. So graph the following. Graph the following set in interval notation, and I want you also to state its inequality form. Okay, so let's do this. So if we have, let's say for example, we have -3 and 5. All right, so how would we draw that in how would we graph that in interval notation? We would first draw a line, make sure I put the 0, include our -3, include our +5, and then because it's open, so these are open, that means that we would do a open bracket or open parentheses rather. This is how it look, like that. That means that we do not include 3. And then again here we also have an open bracket, meaning we do not include 5. And so what we're really looking for is please mute your mic if you're not speaking. We're looking for all the numbers that are in between -3 and 5. And so that's how we would graph it. So we have already finished the first one. We graph it in interval notation. That's good. Now I want us to state it in inequality form. How would we do that? How would we state this in inequality form?
-3 is less than 0 and
X
5
is
is
less
less
than
than 5.
5.
Okay, so -3 is less than
Than
X.
X.
I mean X.
X and then X is less
x
than
is
5.
less than 5. Very good. And so someone might be confused. They may see saying, okay, what's happening? All we're saying is that x is in between 3 and 5. So x is, yeah,
Wait,
that's all you
wait.
gotta do.
So can I just poke?
All right,
What about
give me one moment. Give me one moment. Ashma, give me one moment. One moment. Let me just clarify it, and then I'll give you an opportunity to ask a question, because I may answer your question in explanation. So what we're saying is that, think about it, x is less than 5. So any number in here have to be less than 5. That's true. But it's not only less than 5. It's also greater than -3. All right? Because we don't go over -3. All right? So all these numbers here are greater than -3. They're bigger than -3. But they are also less than 5. They're smaller than 5. Okay? Excuse me. So that's how we would do it. All right? Go ahead, Ashma, your question, if you still have it.
No, I wasn't like I was trying to make an example. Like you're saying like the way with the way you put it just now on the screen, wouldn't like the x be the zero between like negative and whole numbers like on the graph?
No, so x is not a single number. X could represent any number. So 0 could be x. 0 could fit in there, right? But let me give you let me give you options. Let me give you 3 options. We have 3 options. We have 2, we have 15, and we have 1. Which numbers can fit into this inequality or satisfy this inequality?
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
The 1 and 2, right? The 1 and the 2. What about the 15?
No.
No salt.
No, it's too big, right? It's not in between. It's not in between the negative 3 and 5. So that's why I'm saying that x could be 1 or x could be 2. When we have 0, we don't mean that x is 0. X could be 0, but we don't mean that x is 0, because x could take on different values.
No, I'm not
I'm
saying
not
it
saying
is.
it
I was
is. I
using
was
an
using an
example to
example to
using that
using
as the
that as
graph.
the
Like
graph.
with the way you
With the
put it
way
on
you put it on
screen,
the
I was
screen, I
saying
was saying
maybe
maybe
x being
x
like
being
the
like
zero
the zero
between
between
both
both
sides.
sides.
Like as an
Like as an
example.
example.
Okay, yeah, sure. The value of x could be an example to satisfy this inequality. That could work. Also, the same thing as 1, the same thing as 2. We could think of other examples. 3.5, 4, -2. These are all values of x that are in between -3 and 5. Is that clear, or do we have any questions? Let me know.
Yeah, do one more.
Do one more. All right. Okay.
One more,
One more,
please.
please.
Okay, no problem. All right. So please make sure that your mics are muted. All right. So again, we are going to graph the given set in interval notation. My screen froze.
If I come now.
We could say
We
it now.
could say it now.
Okay, graph the given set in interval notation. I wonder what's happening. What's causing that? Graph the given set in interval notation and then state its associated inequality form.
They would
They
ask
would
for it, so
ask
you
for it, so you
just
just
practice it with
practice
themselves.
it.
They would. See, and that's the thing. I hate the answer questions like that. Everything. No. When we have stuff like this, it's so much ways that it could come up, right? That it's like saying, okay, like let's say for example, if I say 2 plus 2, right? You think they got asked that in the exam?
No, they don't ask on two
You
plus
don't think
two.
they got asked 2 plus 2 in the exam? Yes or no? No, you don't think they asked 2 plus 2, right? Definitely not, right?
No.
But you think you need to know what is 2 plus 2?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, like it's bigger than the exam. What I mean is that this is what I mean. You are preparing for an exam, but you need to understand that there's different ways that they could test the same thing. And so I cannot just say, okay, this how they're gonna say it or this how they're gonna do it. But if I give you the concept of doing it, then whatever form they bring it, you will know. For example, something like this, they don't even have to bring it in this form. They could just bring it, and do you know how a way they could bring it? They could say, hey, we want you to graph this. We want you to make sure that when you're graphing, that you follow these constraints when you're graphing. Now, when you read that, if you don't know what this is, you wouldn't even know how to read it, right? So, when we go over things, right, understand that the exams is going to test the skills that you are learning, right? So don't think, okay, there's going to be a specific question that's going to look just like this. No, right? It's gonna come in compounded ways, right? Just in a similar way how, they're not going to specifically ask you what is 2 plus 2, but you need to know how to add. You understand? And so hopefully that helps, right? So don't think exam, think building concepts, because the concepts together will help you to do well in the exam, not knowing the exam, all right? Okay. All right, so graph the given set in interval notation and state its associated inequality form. Okay, so let's do -3 and 7. And so we want to graph this out in interval notation. Put the 0 in the middle and -3 right here and +7 all the way here. Now we need to make sure that this -3, notice that it's open parentheses, all right? And so this is going to be open parentheses here, open parentheses. And then 7, +7 is again open parentheses, and so we are considering all the numbers that are in between -3 and 7. Now, we do not include the endpoints. Remember we said at the beginning, once we have them two open up like that, we do not include the endpoints. All right. So we are including all these numbers, but we're not including the boundary. We're not including the endpoints. And so how would we write this in its inequality form? What would it be?
-3 is less than x and x is less than 5.
Less than, and x is less than 7.
My
Okay, so
bad, I
that's
know everything.
the way to do it. Now we could represent this too by, that's what we're gonna do next. We've been representing them in interval notation. But remember our first way that we saw, we could also represent it like that, and I'm gonna show you how to do that. So I'm gonna take one of these compounded, we call them compounded inequalities, and then we're gonna represent it not in interval notation this time, but in our regular way that we saw before. So we're gonna begin with this example. So if we wanna represent this one in the way that we regularly did it, the first time, what we would do is, of course, we take account for our 0, and of course we make sure I include 7, and we definitely make sure I include -3. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the 0 on top of, or circle on top of 3. We put a circle on top of 7. Are we going to shade in the circle?
No,
No. Why not?
because those are not equal to.
Because they're not included, right? They're not equal to. And so we're going to leave it like that. And then we're going to draw a line that connects both of them. Alright. And that's it in, sorry, that line could have been way better than that. We need to extend that. So it's going to be, so both of these are appropriate ways of representing the same inequality. Okay, one in interval notation, and the next one in the regular way that we do it initially. Okay, so both of them works. What this is saying is that we're gonna start at 3, end at 7, but we do not include the 7 and we do not include the -3.
By the way, wouldn't
mean
that mean
anything
anything
between
between
anything
anything
that's like
that's
between
like
3 and
between 3
7
and
would be
7 would be
x
x
because
because
3 can't
3
like
can't
be
like
over
be over
any of
any
them,
of them,
right?
right?
So anything between -3 and 7 will be x, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, let me know when I can move.
1 second.
1 second.
So what I'm teaching you here is I'm teaching you here the language of mathematics. If you don't know the language of mathematics, you cannot do it, you know. So these are the fundamentals, the building blocks. Um, Fair game on any national exam. These are the basics. Right? Okay, moving right along. Alright, so let's do another one. So let's say we have graph the given inequality. So graph the given inequality. So if we have the inequality 5, say -5 is less than x is less than 8. How would we go ahead and graph that? Can someone help me? How would we go ahead and graph this? Not an interval notation. Let's do the regular way that we've doing it. We would
Put it on
Put it on
the
the
-5 on the
on
number
the number
line,
line,
yeah.
and put
and
8
put
and
8
put the
and put the
0 right
0
above
right
it in the
above it in the
middle.
middle,
And
Mm-hmm.
then
and then
just the
just the
line
line
going in
going
between
in
those
between
with the
those with the
arrow above the
arrow above
bubble.
the bubble.
Definitely. So we have -5, 0, and +8. And notice how I only include the numbers that are important. You could do that. That's fine. You don't have to draw in all the numbers. Only include the numbers that are important, right? That's of course if you are pressed for time, you could do something simple like that. But you should make sure it kind of makes sense, because if this is -5, -8 cannot be so close to 0. It must be further than. Just make a note of that.
Activity,
But
you could
seriously,
do
you
that
could do
over,
that
please.
over, please.
I
I
missing
missing
mute the
mute
text.
the
I couldn't
text.
hear
I
you
couldn't
well
hear
at
you
all.
well at all.
Or saying that notice we have -5 is less than x and less than 8. And I was asking how are we gonna represent it on the number line. The first thing we do, we draw our number line. We make sure I have our key points, the -5, the 0, and the 8. All right. And so what we do is we place a circle above the 5. Are we gonna shade the circle?
No circle.
No,
No.
no,
No,
or
definitely
you
not.
may put
One on top
one
of
on
the
top of
5,
the
one on top
one
of
on
the
top of
8,
the
and
8,
then
and
4,
then
Yes.
right?
4.
Yeah, definitely. All right, and then we just draw a regular line going straight through. So this is a way to do it. In interval notation, we know how to do it in interval notation. So we have -5. Are y'all following me? I feel like y'all are too quiet.
I am.
I
Yes.
am.
We
Yes.
are.
We are.
Yes,
We are.
we are.
We are
Okay.
listening.
Alright. Okay. Alright. In interval notation, we would have, this will be open bracket and then definitely open bracket. Alright. So that's a way to represent this. Now, can someone give me this in interval notation though? How would we write this in interval notation?
Yes.
We don't know.
Take five.
Open
Open
bracket,
five.
5,
Comma.
comma,
8.
8.
Close bracket.
Very good. I just gonna say, what am I doing? All right, good. All right, perfect. Okay, so I think that concept is locked and key. And then now we're gonna look at another set of examples with these ones. So that's one type of interval notation when both are open, when we do not include both numbers. All right. But let's say, for example, we include one number and we don't include the other. So we're going to look at examples where we include only the back number. So how would that look like in interval notation? How would that look like in inequality notation? All right. So, oh, can I move this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So, so again, we're still in, this is interval notation. So let's say we have this. No, that's a bracket, and we have A, and we have B, and we have open bracket. All right. You know what? First, let me separate the board. So let me make sure it's very clear. So this side is interval notation, and this side is, please mute your mic, please. There should be no reason why your mic is on if you're not asking a question. And then we have inequality notation.
No, sorry.
Inequality notation. And so with interval notation, there's another way that we could do it. So here we have close, so that's a closed bracket, and we have A, comma, A, comma B, and we open it on that side. And so what that means? That means that we are going to include A, this number, but we're not going to include this number. All right, again, we're going to include this number, we're not going to include this number. Now, can someone tell me how I'm going to write it in inequality notation if I had something like this?
Open bracket.
Open bracket, inequality notation?
Close bracket.
No.
A,
Say it again.
A,
All right, hello. A, uh-huh.
X,
X, uh-huh.
B,
B, uh-huh.
um,
Also, it has to be A is less than X and X is um, less than B.
Remember that for this one, we include A. So what symbol do we use to say that we include A?
open bracket.
Oh no, y'all really in there tonight. No.
Less than or equal to.
That's who, Doa?
Yeah.
Yeah, alright. I just gonna call you and Nancy out. Alright, very good. It's less than or equal to, very good. Okay, because why? We include the A. That's included. Alright.
Oh, that what that means?
Yeah, that's what that means. That's what that bracket means. Notice
Oh,
it's
I
not
didn't
an
know
open
that.
bracket. It's not an open parentheses. It's a bracket. Square bracket. The difference.
I thought you just was being fancy with that too.
For
Fancy.
real?
Hello?
Hey.
I sorry, I just popped back in. What exactly? Where are we?
Oh
I
wow.
stepped out for 2 minutes and I come back and I say I don't know what to do.
Oh gee. That's what I was wondering. I was saying because I asked a question and let's see what Nancy yet. Strange. But I was trying to explain that there's a different way that we could do it. Because remember, this time we just dealing with when both are open. So when we do not include both, right? So when we do not include the 5 and we do not include the 8. Here I'm saying, what if we were to include the 5? Sorry, the negative 5. Like what would that look like, right? If we were to include the first number, if we were to include that in our set, all right? In interval notation, that would look like this. We'd have a square bracket. That would be A, right? But we do not include the last number, so that means it's open. All right. So what this means is that let me write it clearly. We include A, and A is a number. All right. But we do not include B. Okay. So if we were to go to our inequality notation, the way that we say that we include A is that we do what? We say A is less than or equal to X. But when we do not want to include B, we're going to use what? If we do not want to include B.
Less than.
Strictly less than. Yes. Right? So this means the same thing. We include A, but we do not include.
By the way, I still don't understand why you have a bracket in front of the A.
Okay, the bracket in front of the A. The bracket in front of the A is just symbol. That's just a symbol that we use to say that we include A. That's the symbol that we use to say that
Okay.
we include A. A is going to be a part of our set now.
So A
So
is supposed to stand for like another number, or
A means a
like in the
number.
graph.
Yeah, A means a number. All right. And B is a number as well.
I get it now.
So we include A, but we do not include B. All right. Now, if we were to do it in a graph, the way how we would do it is we would say, okay, graph this out. Make sure we have A. Sorry. And make sure we have B. Remember, we include A, so that means that this is going to be a square bracket because we include A. Notice it's not an open bracket no more. It's a square bracket.
So for B,
And
you
then
would put an open bracket.
definitely for B, I would put an open bracket. Okay, so open. All right. And then for this one, next one, again, we include A, but we do not include B. And so that means for this one, so let me just put A here. And then we're going to put B here. Can someone tell me what would I do for A, the A side? What would I do?
Put a shaded
You would
circle.
put a shaded circle.
A shaded circle, very good. So it's going to be a shaded circle. The shaded circle because I include A now. So A is included. And then now for B, let's use a green.
It'll be just a circle instead of circle.
It'll just be a circle, an empty circle. Right? And then I draw a line to connect the two. And there we have it. Out of these two notations, which one is your favorite?
The first one.
Enter inequality notation.
Inequality?
Yes,
It's
it's
inequality
easier.
better.
You like the inequality better? How?
I
Look at
think
look.
I
inequality
like the first
notation.
one. The first one is easier.
To put it this to you, you know.
First one
For
is
me,
easier.
inequality is easier. I don't know.
For you, inequality is easier. But I mean,
I
look
like
at this.
both.
This is so simple though.
Notation is
Interval notation, just put that there. A, B, boom. For inequality, you gotta do A less than or equal to X.
I like the
Greater.
first one.
Ah man, no
Yeah,
matter.
but like with inequality, you put all those signs. It's easier to understand.
Ah, it's easy to understand. Okay, okay, okay. All right. Well, I can live with
Same
that.
man. Because the other one, the one where brackets, you said a bracket shape. If you don't do that, then you fail.
Yeah, you would
The
fail.
other one is just a whole different scenario. No, none.
None. Okay, none. None was an option though, but anyway. Oh boy, Nancy, I can never understand you, but all right. I mean, teachers one. If you want to, if you're in an exam and you want to be precise, and you don't want to make no mistakes, I would say go into inequality notation, because like, okay, you clearly could see what's happening. Sometimes for interval notation, you kind of wondering, which one is it. Well, it's up to you. All right. Okay, so interval notation, inequality notation. All right, so are we good?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
so let's do an actual example. All right, so actual example. So what I'm gonna do, the only thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to put one side, so interval notation, and then I want you to fill out the rest.
You even want us to do it on the graph too?
Yes. So interval notation, inequality notation. So um okay, so let's do that. Let's do this properly. So let's say I have um square bracket -3 close let's say 2. No, let's not use 2. Let's use 5 open parentheses. So what I want you to do is I want you to write that in inequality notation. How would we take this and write it in inequality notation? You could help me.
Um,
Negative
negative
3
3.
less than
-3.
or equal to
What?
x
Less than or equal to x, which is what?
less than or
Less
equal
than
to
5.
5.
Very good. Good. Now let's translate it into words. What does it mean in words?
It means we include we include -3, but we don't include 5.
Very good. We include -3, but we exclude or we do not include 5. Okay, and the same thing is true for the side. We include -3, but we do not include 5. Alright, so now how are we going to represent it in as a graph? I want to see this one from you all. Let me see how this one looks. This table. Hopefully you have the nice table going on. So once you finish with it, send it in. So once you're finished with it, send it in. Let me see what you're doing.
With or without the graph?
With the graph. With the graph. I want to see the graph. With the graph, people.
Boyfriend and girlfriend and
Alright, so alright. Do y'all very good? Let's see. Uh-huh. Yeah, perfect. 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 Alright. So let's do it. Anyone else? We're not done?
I send it.
Okay, you sent it. Very good.
Finished.
Alright. Okay, so thank you, Veronique. Alright, so we're gonna include 3 but do not include 5. So let's do this. So this is gonna be -3. Sorry, let me do this properly so we can be on the same page. So -3, definitely. Let's put as 0 here, and then we're gonna have 5. Right? I really don't want to put. I really don't want to put 0 because then, sometimes we think 0 is mightily important, but let's just imagine the 0 there. We know we're on a spectrum. Then the first thing we're gonna do, notice that it's a square bracket. That means we include the -3. It's gonna be a square bracket. Emphasis on the square bracket. All right. And then we are going to do not include 5. So open bracket on the 5. Right. Let me do this properly.
We have to put the 0 or it's optional?
It's optional. It's optional. But in the exam, be a good student. But here we just want to sketch. All right, so we're good. So bracket, square bracket, and open bracket. Very good for those who are sending it in. Thank you so much. So we include -3. We do not include -5. I mean +5. Excuse me. On this side, okay, on this side, we are going to on this side we are going to also place the -3. So -3, and we're also gonna put the 5.
I have a question, Mr. Mickey.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, you see like how now we trying to make it like how we put -3 over there and we put +5 over there. Like we ain't having too close so it could be like
Yeah.
yeah. So like if you put it like close to that, like would you get marked down for that?
Yeah, definitely. You want your sketch to be mathematically accurate. So if they too close, they're not close to each other, right? There are digits separating them, all right? And to be honest, like how we did it the first time, this is how it should look, right? But we just skip the numbers. But you want to put in the numbers in, but in here we just sketching, and so that's why I don't emphasize the numbers, because we know what we're doing. But in general, put the numbers in. I would say put the numbers in, unless you really rushing and you don't have enough time to really get it all in, but put in the numbers. All right, to make sure your graph is proportional and mathematically accurate. Okay, so here we're gonna put the circle rather, on top, and we're gonna shade it, or not shade it.
Shaded.
Shade it, very good. So shade it all in. Thank you for those persons who are sending in their notes. And then the next one, we are going to leave it open, right? And so then we connect these two. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. All right, perfect. All right, so we shade in the -3, and we leave this one open. All right, so -3 and the 5 we leave open. Okay. All right, so we good on this?
Yes, sir.
All right, it's pretty good. All right, so we could go on to the next one. Okay, so obviously you can understand what's gonna happen as we change it, right? Here, I mean, we first started off. The first time we started off with what? Just both open, okay? And then the next step was to say, okay, let's say if we don't have both open, let's say one is open and the other one, sorry, one is closed and the other one is open. What do you think we're gonna do for the next one?
So both can be open or the
We,
opposite?
we already talked about where both of them open. We already talked
Opposite.
about that extent. Say it again.
Um, Alright, the first bracket was there. Both of them didn't have the bracket.
You mean the closed bracket when both of them close?
Yes, sir.
That's an option. So we can have both of them closed.
Or the
Or
opposite.
we could have the first one closed and the other one open. So let's do that one. All right.
Alright.
So separate it. So again, interval notation. Interval notation, and then we have this one is going to be inequality notation. All right. So okay. So what if we have where the first one is open, okay, and the second one is closed. All right. How would we represent that in inequality notation?
So we don't include A, but we include B.
Very good. But in inequality notation, how would we represent that?
Um,
That would be
A
what? A.
with less than
Strictly less than
X
X.
less than
less
or
than
equal
or
to
equal to
less than or equal to
B.
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 B. Very good. So this is how we express it in inequality notation. What does this mean? What does this
A
mean?
is not included, but B
that
is.
A is not included, but we include B.
Very good. So we do not include A, right? But we do include B, right? Similarly, the same thing applies. We do not include A, but we do include B. Any questions for me?
No.
No, sir.
No? Okay. Okay, so let's do it graphically. So on a graph, it'll be, oh wow, that's a terrible line. So on a graph, it'll be all the way Alright, so we're gonna have A and we're gonna have B, and notice that here we are going to put this one open, so we're gonna use an open parentheses for this one, and then for B we're gonna use a closed one. Alright, are we clear on that?
Yes, sir.
Alright, that's good. And so let's do the next one, the next side. Are there any questions for me about what we're doing? If you don't understand something, let me know.
So I have a question, see?
Uh-huh.
For the inequality notation on the when we're doing it in the graph way. So the circle for A, you will be shading the one for B, you're shading, right?
Yeah, definitely. So just do that now. So for this one, we do not include A. So a circle out here because we do not include A. And for this one, less than or equal to, we have to shade it in. Alright, so shading that, shading it. So we're gonna shade in the B. Alright, so next up we're gonna draw a line that connects both of them.
How do you line straight in our minds and you on the laptop?
Are you using a ruler?
Oh,
No, yeah. Use a ruler.
I tried to draw straight.
Yeah, use a ruler. Okay. Any questions for me?
Yes, sir.
No,
No.
no,
No,
sir.
sir.
Alright, so let's move forward. Can I move or you're still writing?
It's still better.
Still writing? Okay.
I done.
Okay.
Me too.
For those who are sending in their notes, please, thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. For those who have not sent anything yet for the night, please send me something so that I can know that you are not only here, but you're participating as well.
Excuse me, TT.
Yes, sir.
I got the
I
link.
just had time. I was gonna ask you when people like don't send in the work like for a long time.
Let us know.
You end up calling their parents or something.
Yeah, that's what I'll end up doing. Yeah.
Why you at the back, man?
Uh,
I am
I got you.
participating, but
are you good?
I don't get any send it. So yeah.
Yeah, Heston, yeah, I know your situation. All right. Okay, so someone is asking to join. All right, Mr. Merritt. All right, so let's move on. Oh, we only have 5 more minutes.
I get one concluded.
I have a
Okay.
question, right? Does it have to be notes, or can it be like screenshots?
Who's that speaking?
Oh, shit.
Seth Andrews. Oh, especially for math, you definitely wanna write it down. Yeah, written notes. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The reason why is because we're not in a face-to-face setting, and so if it was face-to-face and I could know, okay, yeah, they're not writing, but at least they get it. I can look at your faces. But here the only thing I can tell is through what you send me, and
So
so yes, sir.
it wasn't no COVID. We would have been in your class right now.
Yeah, you would have been in my class.
You joking, right?
You would have been in my
No
class.
man, you wasn't on that class though.
Stop joking.
Yeah, you've been in my class. All right. Okay. Um, let's do a last example, and then we'll go on over to English. And the last example is gonna be this. All right. So something like this. It's gonna be interval notation, and of course inequality notation. So we're gonna do an easy example to finish it off, just to stamp in that idea. And then the next time we meet, we're gonna look at the other examples to interval notation and to inequality notation. There's we have to look at when both are closed. We haven't looked at that yet. When both are closed, and we haven't looked at when we have something, say like positive infinity and negative infinity, stuff like that. We haven't looked at those ones. So
For tomorrow, wait.
yeah, that's for tomorrow. Yes, Miss Cooper. So interval notation. So let's say we have, let me give you an inequality first, and then change it into interval notation. So let's say we have 7 is strictly less than x, which is less than or equal to 9. All right. Let's say -7. All right. So how are we gonna write it in this way? We're gonna do what?
-9. I mean, well,
Open bracket.
Open brackets. Very good.
-9.
No.
I mean,
-7
Negative
comma
7, comma
9. Those brackets.
9. What type of bracket though?
square bracket. That is
Square bracket. Square bracket. That would be a square bracket.
Oh, it's rectangle.
Oh, rectangle. Pick your poison. Um. All right. Okay, good. Now we have it in interval notation. Now it's gonna write what it means. We what?
We don't
We do
include
not include what?
the 7, -7,
-7.
Yeah,
Yeah.
-7.
but we include 9.
But we include 9. Very good. Similarly, for this one, we do not include -7, but we include 9. Sorry. All right. Next up, let's actually graph it. So we're gonna graph it from left to right, and we're gonna put -7 rather. Let's put 0 as a reference point. We could, and then -7 here. 9 is going to be more over here. Let's do it a little bit more accurate than that. So let's say we have let's bring this over a little more. So -7 and yeah, 9. I don't like how this look. Give me one moment. So we draw our number line, put the 0 in the middle. 9 is going to be all the way over here. -7 is going to be somewhere here. Remember, we do not include the -7, so that means we're going to use an open bracket for that. And now we include 7, so we include 9, so it's going to be a square bracket or rectangular bracket. And then finally, for this last one, it's going to be 0. It's going to be -7, and of course it's going to be 9 here. And so we're going to use a open circle rather, to denote that, and we're going to use a shaded circle to denote this one.
Mr. Batiste there?
I'm here.
Oh,
I'm here. I mean, it ain't just moving by itself.
whisk, please.
No, and then we do it over. Alright. Okay, so we're done. So that brings us to the end of the math section. And so we covered a lot of bases today. We first started, like I told you, it starts very easy. We started very easy with one simple inequality, and then it got a little difficult, I would imagine. Learning some things you've never learned before, some of you. And then as it comes along, and then you get familiar with it, right? And so hopefully you don't find this hard or difficult. But you have to remember, there's a lot of remembering to, but it's not heavy calculations. You just have to remember, which one is open, which one is closed, what does it mean, stuff like that. Okay, so with that being said, we will move on to English. All right. Okay, so let's move on to English class. Okay. I was trying to figure out who is Javen Monroe. Javen. Can you give me your full name, please? Oh, Javen is not here. That's the full name. Okay. Have you sent me any notes yet? Yes. That's strange. I wonder what name I have you saved as on my phone. Everybody else. Oh, and who is Sage Fox? What's your full name, please? Sage Fox. And who else? I don't know. Of course, Dove. Alright. Everyone else I know. I have an idea. Anika Riley. There's someone named Anika Riley here. That. Yeah. Anna K. Riley. Can you also give me a full name too? Those ones I couldn't put a name to the screen name. Alright. Let's begin. Let's go back to English. Alright, so English has been an interesting journey, to be honest. Anyone can remember we learned it last week? Oh, I have it on the screen.
Phrases. We start with phrases.
Phrases.
That was yesterday. You said last week.
Sorry, not yet.
Phrases.
Sorry.
Phrases.
Monday,
Phrases.
Phrases, right? Phrases. I mean, I gave it away. And can anyone give me an example of different types of phrases that we have?
Prepositional phrase.
Prepositional phrase,
Adjective
Adverb
phrase.
phrases.
adjective phrase, adjective, yes.
Let me answer.
Verbal phrases. And
Verbal
infinitive
phrases,
I can
yeah.
barely say answer.
You got
And
verb so fast.
and say it again. I heard someone said something, didn't get that. What was the last phrase that we was on? Or that we did the last thing that we was on? We was on verbal phrases.
Right?
No, it wasn't A
Participle
positive.
phrases.
Participle
Participle
phrases.
phrases.
Participle. That participle. So we talked about what is a participle. Anyone can remember what is a participle?
A
I
A
get to
form of
there.
a verb that
verb that
implies
has an adjective.
Reading straight from the notes.
no, so
Often go first.
Or from Google. Alright. But they're right. It is a form of a verb that acts as an adjective. So our participles are gonna end in ing. Alright, like fascinating. Alright. Are they gonna end in ed, t, or en? For example, in this one is extended, so this is a participle. And our perfect participle is gonna be stuff like having or having been. Okay. So what do we mean when we say participle? Participle phrase. I think it's pretty clear. The reason why I say this is because I mean a participle phrase is going to be a phrase that has a participle in it along with some other cool stuff. Right? That's basically in short what it is. Right? Uh it's gonna be a it's gonna be a phrase that has participle in it along with some other we could say modifiers, objects, and complement. Okay. All right. So let's get into and let's dive into what we participle phrase and all the the good stuff about it. So today is excuse me. Today is Wednesday. Let me zoom
What are
in.
we writing about today?
Mm, we'll see.
All the other days.
We'll see. We'll see.
Of course.
Maybe, maybe not. But they might just be explain day. We'll see. See how it goes. So January.
I can start maybe a week.
All right, Wednesday, the 19th of January. Um, today is sorry, the subject. English language, of course. For those who are just joining us or who are new to us, make sure please take good, diligent notes and send them to me right after class. The topic today is participle phrases.
Mr. Petit.
Yes, ma'am?
You spelled
You
it
spelled
wrong.
it wrong.
Let's spell it wrong.
Mr.
Mr.
Petit.
Petit.
You test
You
us
test
today?
us today?
Alright, that's you
For
know.
real,
I
Miss
thought I
Beaver
spelled PLE.
You spelled
You
it
spelled it
wrong.
wrong.
No, I
You're
spelled it
wrong.
right. I spelled it
No, I'm
right.
mistaken.
I spelled it right.
Participle,
Participle,
not pull,
not
I
pull,
think.
I think.
Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
What
you
put
are
what
putting
P I
What
L?
did
PIL.
I?
Yeah, it's good. That's PIL.
That's not how you.
Mr.
Mr.
Petit.
Petit.
Yep.
What's
Okay.
P
No.
E A L, no
PEA,
P
no
I A
Hey,
L.
PIL.
hey.
It's
PA,
PA,
not
not
PIL.
No
PIL.
problem.
PILES.
No problem. Let's go on Google.
So you
So
gave us the
you gave
wrong
us the
thing
wrong
last
thing
time.
last
It's
time.
It's
142,
good.
Mr. Petit.
It's good. It's good that we have Google. You know, it's good that we have Google right
It's
there.
two
It's two
spellings
spellings
word.
word.
Is it there? Participle phrase. What other part do you want me to do? What do you want me to do?
So you going
So
on
you go
Google.
on Google.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
PLE. You see
You
that?
see that?
PLE.
PLE.
Oh,
What
I'm
is
so
PLE?
both.
sorry.
Hey,
Go back to the
it's
top. Go back to the top. No,
both.
no, no, no,
It's
no. Go
both
back to the top.
works.
Go back to the
Both
top.
works.
No,
Both
no, go
works.
to the top.
Both works. Apparently, both works because here, they have it spelled with participle like so, and here they have it like so. This the one that I'm using. Okay.
So we use
So
let
we
me
use
just
let me
stick
just
with
stick
it.
with it.
Yeah, I mean, whatever works for you. Okay, since they, I mean, I think this one is fine as well, so I don't have no issues with it.
I spell
I
all of
spell
mine
all of
since we
mine since
maybe
we
have it in
maybe
the
have it in
first
the
one, so
first
I
one.
don't
So
know.
I don't know.
Okay. I mean, if that's what you've been using, then of course, keep what you've been using. That's important. No problem with that at all. But just know that there are two different ways for it. All right. All right. So what is a participle phrase? Someone is asking to join. All right, Marinique. All right, welcome, Marinique Parker. So what is a participle phrase? And of course, how do we identify these participle phrases? All right. So a participle phrase, gotta get used to this. Is one that begins with so we're gonna begin with a participle. All right. And remember, Our participles are, gonna end in ing, gonna end in ed. It's basically a word that acts as an adjective. All right, so it begins with a participle.
Mr. T.
Yes, ma'am.
That makes sense.
A participle
The
phrase is
participle phrase is one that begins.
yeah, okay, or a phrase if you want me to be more precise. A participle phrase is a phrase that begins with a participle. And remember what
That
we
makes sense to me.
I
okay.
think you meaning like
Like
that, like
that,
where
like
it's a
where
girl,
say
it's
go,
supposed to
it's
be
supposed
that.
to be that.
It's a phrase
It's one
that
that
okay,
begins.
that begins. Thank you. That begins with a participle, and participle we're talking about words that end in ing or words that end in what? Ed
Ed
or t
or
or
en.
en, and they act. So the word acts as an adjective. Okay. So it's a phrase that begins with a participle, and it also contains um, other related words. Okay, other related words. For example, it could have a prepositional phrase. We could have in their nouns. We have in their pronouns. We could have in their adjectives, and we could also have in their adverbs. So I think it's pretty straightforward. Once you get your participle, you begin with a participle, and you have other related words. The other related words could be prepositional phrase, a noun, pronoun, and adverb, and such like that. So the next question is, what does a participle phrase look like? Right? So what does it look like? And we're gonna give different examples, just showing what does it look like and what are different parts of it. Okay, and so we begin with this sentence. It says, outwitting. Anyone know what it means to outwit?
Outsmart.
Outsmart, yeah. So outwitting the hounds, the raccoons easily, they easily did what?
Um,
Catch.
Mm, so if they outwit
Run
the
away.
hounds,
escape.
if they escaped, yeah,
Easily kept running.
or kept running, all right. So what they're saying here? Who outwit who?
The
The
house
house
with the
with the
raccoon.
No, no, sir.
The
the
raccoon.
raccoon.
The raccoons outwit the
The
hounds. They
raccoon
say,
outwit the hound.
yeah, it says outwitting the hounds. So this is speaking about the raccoons, what the raccoons did. It says outwitting or outsmarting the hounds, the raccoons easily escape. Where's my participle? Can anyone identify my participle?
Escape.
No.
Escape. Outwitting.
Outwitting. That's my participle. What is
Always.
my
So
part?
participles always begin at the start of the sentence. That's what
We're
you mean.
talking about a participle phrase. So the participle phrase is going to begin with the participle. So it tells us very easily what our participle phrase is. By the way, what is a participle phrase in this sentence?
Outwitting the how.
Outwitting the how. Outwitting the hounds. Very good. So participle phrase is outwitting the hounds. The participle is outwitting, excuse me, um, this describes, so remember it is a form of a verb that describes, right? Remember, if we go back to our participles, it's a form of a verb that acts as an adjective, so it describes, right? So what is outwitting describing? Is describing the raccoons. Okay, so the participle phrase is outwitting the hounds, and the participle is outwitting, and that's going to describe what the raccoons is. And just power plug, outwitting just basically means to outsmart. All right. Now when we look at the hounds, this relates to the hounds relates to outwitting. In what sense? In the sense that
Who got outwitted?
yeah, exactly. In the sense that it tells us who got outwitted. So we know who got outwitted. So the participle phrase, right? The participle phrase is going to have a participle, and it's going to have, remember we said other related words. What's the other related words? The hounds. And the hounds is related in the sense that it tells us who got outwitted. Okay? So this phrase, this participle phrase, outwitting the hounds, right? So outwitting the hounds, that entire participle phrase, this is the participle phrase. It tells us what more information about the raccoons. And that makes so much sense, because if we didn't have that, imagine if the sentence didn't have that participle phrase. We wouldn't have that extra information. All we wouldn't know, tell me what all we wouldn't know if we didn't have this
That
part.
the raccoons escaped.
Yeah, that's all we didn't know. We just didn't know that the raccoons escaped. But this part adds flavor. Someone said something?
Never mind.
Okay. This part actually adds flavor and life to the sentence. It says, hey, the raccoons didn't just escape, right? But there's yes, ma'am.
Would you say like that kind of is like independent and dependent clause or no?
Independent clause. Outwitting the hounds. Outwitting the hounds. No. Remember, a clause is different from a phrase. Okay.
I just was asking if you think it would
If I think it's, I think that this one could work as a dependent clause. I think this one could work as a dependent clause. But in terms of the definition that we're using here, we're looking at it as a phrase, as a past participle phrase. But definitely the raccoons easily escaped is a complete thought. That could stand on its own. The raccoons easily escaped. And this phrase here that we added, gives us more information about the raccoons itself. So we call that a participle phrase. It has a participle and it has other related words. All right. So moving right along, we can use another example. This one is going to be pretty straightforward. Nothing difficult about this sentence. It says, I saw her fishing contently. I saw her fishing contently. Now, first question is, what does contently means? When we say contently, what does that mean?
Peacefully.
More than peacefully.
Bonobo.
Say it again.
Repeat it.
No. Contently. Like if I say, I don't have a lot of things in life, but I am content. What does that mean?
Comfortable.
Calm.
More than comfortable. More than comfortable.
Satisfied.
Satisfied.
Passionate.
Humble.
Satisfied. So content, if you're content, you're satisfied. Right? You're satisfied. All right? You're satisfied. You are not ungrateful. You are glad. You are comfortable. That's what content means. What other synonyms comes to mind when it gratified, satisfied, pleased, right? Relaxed, comfortable, at ease. These are different synonyms for content, right? Very good vocabulary words, by the way. Make sure you know them. Okay, so, all right, so what is the participle?
Fishing.
Fishing.
Yeah, fishing. So fishing is the participle. We have it ending in ing, so fishing is, and we are describing her action. We are describing what she's doing. All right. Next we have,
Ideas is the other part of the sentence.
say it again.
I say so. Like it wouldn't be no extra ideas.
Yeah, remember we have remember our past participle phrase is going to contain a past participle and a related words, um related words like a prepositional phrase, adjective, noun, and stuff like that. So the related word that we have is contently. That's the related word. Contently is related to fishing because it describes how she is fishing. Okay, so contently is related to, so there we have it. So what is if we put them together, what will be our a past participle phrase?
Fishing contently.
Yes, fishing contently. So fishing contently is the past participle. Not past participle, it's the participle phrase containing, starting first with our participle and then on any other related word that's connected to it. Alright, so those are our two examples on what does it look like. Who's asking to join? All right, welcome. All right. Okay, so
Mr. Batik.
yes, sir.
The social studies.
Say it again.
What we doing right now?
We doing English. Social studies until
How I
tomorrow.
get I get the form, please.
Sure, no problem. I have to remember to
Yes, sir.
send it to your email.
Can you
Um,
also send me a recording? I
yeah,
like to review.
that's good. That's no problem. I usually send the recording to everyone. Do we all get it? Who does not have the recording for last night?
I have it.
Okay, so I pretty much did my job. I usually send the recordings along with the link for the class, you know, for that day. Um, let's do another one. So this one I'm gonna allow you to do it. Tell me what is the participle, what is the participle phrase? Okay. So this one is for you all. Tackled on the 1 yard line. Sam fumbled the ball. So tackled on the 1 yard line. Sam fumbled, sorry, the ball. So let's begin with the participle. What is the participle?
Tackled
Fumble.
on the one yard
Tackle.
Fumble.
line.
Say it again.
Tackle. Tackle.
That's
Tackle.
two. Fumble and
Tackle.
Um. Okay. I'm talking about the one that's related to our past participle phrase. That's the one we're identifying. And so it will be tackled. So this describes what happened to Sam. It's very important to note that this word tackle is related to Sam. Alright? This word tackle is related to Sam. We're talking about Sam. Sam is the one who Sam is the one who was tackled. So tackle on the 1 yard line, Sam. So when you see it like that, they're actually referring to Sam. And sometimes persons don't know how to read it, but there's a tone that you read this to. You say tackled on the 1 yard line. Sam fumbled the ball. Okay, so you don't just read it straight through. Like you pause and you have a tone that you read it into, right? Because you know that we're talking about Sam. Okay, so tackled on the 1 yard line. Sam fumbled the ball. All right, so we're talking about Sam. We're describing what happened to Sam. So therefore, it must be a participle. All right, now we have I want the participle phrase. That makes it easy. If we know what the participle is, what is the participle phrase?
Tackled on the 1 yard line.
Tackled on the 1 yard line, yes. Tackled on the 1 yard line. And the extra words or the related words.
Sam fumbled the ball.
No. Remember, our past participle phrase must
Fumbled
contain.
the ball.
No.
The 1 yard line.
On the 1 yard line. Very good. So remember, a past participle phrase is going to contain two parts. It's going to contain your participle and it's going to contain related words. Those words could be modifiers, they could be nouns, they could be pronouns, they could be prepositional phrase, right? So the on the 1 yard line is related. So this is related. Why? It's related to, so it tells us where
Who
he
got
was what?
tackled?
Tells us where, right? This is related to tackled because it tells us where he was tackled. Okay. Now, it's interesting that this is not actually a participle. Fumble is not a participle because fumble tells us what Sam did, and that means it's a verb. So that's just make a note of that, the verb. So fumbled tells us what Sam did. So in this case, it is a verb, right? So it's used in this case as a verb. So a keynote or a key observation from all we have been doing, a key observation is that sentences, or let me just write key observations, and let's begin. So sentences which begin with a participle phrase always have a what? A comma at the end of the participle phrase. Alright, so notice that for each one of these begin with participle phrases, and notice the comma at the end. This one doesn't have a comma at the end because it ends with it.
What the fishing one?
No, it doesn't have it doesn't begin with a participle phrase, it ends with a participle phrase. But if a sentence begins with a participle phrase, then it will have the comma at the end of the participle phrase. You understand?
Yes, sir. So then
Okay.
that how you would know that it's not the one at the begin I mean at the beginning.
Yeah, so they don't have to be at the beginning. They don't have to be at the beginning. They don't always have to be at the beginning. We saw one where it wasn't at the beginning with fishing contently. So, for example, another good example is widely cheering for the team. We celebrated the victory. So here the past participle phrase is easy identifiable. What is it?
What cheering.
Past participle phrase, the full phrase I'm talking about.
Wildly cheering for the team.
Wildly celebrating. Sorry, wildly cheering for the team. That's the entire participle phrase. So the question is, why are we learning this, and why is this important?
Mr. Petit,
Go ahead.
if you just put wildly cheering, it's still what? It's still right?
Wildly cheering. Wildly
Yes, sir.
cheering. Wildly cheering, we celebrated the victory. It's still right. It still reads properly. Um, it's just that, okay, what you cheering? Who you cheering for? Um, So add some more related words to it.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So So what are you expected to do? So what are you expected to do with participle phrases? So like, why are we learning this, and what's the importance of it, and how we can use it in the exam, and do we use it in the exam, and stuff like that. First of all, they're not going to ask you for definitions, right? They're not going to say, oh, tell me what is a participle phrase, or define it, or, state what is a participle phrase, or no, 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 no. The BGC and Bgcse exams are not definition type exams, right? They are practical exams. Someone mic is on and it shouldn't be on. Please mute your mic. So they are practical exams, okay? They are exams um, that test how you use the skills, not test do you know the skills. Right? That's a very important difference. It doesn't test necessarily how much you know or could memorize, but it tests how much you could implement in your own writing. Okay, so for the exam, you want to be able to use participle phrases in your own writing. Okay, in your own writing, to modify and enhance your thoughts along with your thoughts along with adding variety to your sentence beginnings. This is where you're going to be using participle phrases. It's going to help you to be able to enhance your thoughts, right? That's very important. So if we look at the examples that we had, right? Notice how the sentences change dramatically when we add the participle phrases. Like, for example, we talked about this earlier. If we just had the raccoons easily escaped. That sounds bland. That sounds like, okay, the raccoons easily escape. Okay, what's the point? Like, I mean, it's a complete thought. We know that the raccoons easily escape, but we don't have flavor into it, right? But if we say outwitting the hounds, that adds context, that adds variety, that adds, it enhances it a bit, right? Let's look at the other one. This is a good one. I like how I like this one. It's simple, but it's sweet at the same time. It said, I saw her fishing contently, right? You don't just say I saw her fishing. Okay, so she fishing. All right, that's cool. But it tells us how she is fishing, and it adds a whole lot of substance to this, right? And you could really play with this a lot, like especially if you're doing a narrative writing, you know, you could, tell exactly or describe exactly what's happening to the character just by adding, these participle phrases, right? I like this one too. It didn't just say Sam fumbled the ball. That would be too simple, too short, and not really, detailed. But you say tackled on the 1 yard line. That is incredible detail there, right? First of all, you're telling me that he's tackled, so you didn't use a simple word like they just push him down, right? You used the correct vocabulary. Okay, he was tackled. Okay, good, that's nice. And then you say where he was tackled, where he was tackled exactly, not just on the yard or the field, but on the 1 yard line. So hopefully you can see how just adding these participle phrases to the beginning of your sentence or to the end of your sentence really adds context and flavor and depthness to what you're writing. So the reason why we go over this is so that you could be able to use these in your own writing. So instead of just saying we celebrated the victory, you can say wildly cheering for the team, we celebrated the victory. So you have an idea of, okay, how are we gonna start it? So you have and I like how they say here, they said that, hey, listen, you add variety. Another thing when it comes to writing, you wanna make sure add variety. So you don't wanna have a bunch of sentences starting with the, or we, or I. I have this thought to say to you. I agree, and I went to the shop, and I saw my friend, and like a lot of a lot of simple way of starting things and stuff like that. But you want to add some variety to the way how you start your sentences and stuff like that. And so that's where our participle phrases come in. Do we understand that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right. So um hopefully we can use these participle phrases in our writing. All right. Okay, so that is participle phrases. The next type of phrase that we're gonna go ahead.
You could go back down, please, because I gone a couple seconds and I don't know what happened.
Okay, so let me go. Are we good? Let me know.
Mr. T. Can I please
Go ahead.
be excused?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Thank you.
You could go down a little more, please.
Go down a little more. This is the end.
Yes. I mean it to the top.
I mean up.
Go
Okay,
up,
up a little more. Okay, okay.
up.
Up some more. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Hello?
Hello, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh,
I'm here.
I thought you free us.
No, I'm free. I read out. Okay. Are we done with that? Are we good?
Yes, sir.
We're good? Okay, alright.
Uh,
Okay, so now there are times when no comma is added. So the times when no commas are added um when using the times when no commas are added, um let me just entitle that, leave it like that. So there are times when we use a participle phrase, but we don't add no comma, right? And so it's not as clear as the participle phrase, but you could pick it out. But it's not, you don't have to use a comma. Like every time you use it, you write a participle phrase, you don't have to use a comma. Now, when it's starting at the beginning of a sentence, sure, but there are times when no commas are added. Okay, and so when is that? When is that the case? So if the participle phrase is essential, what do we mean by essential?
Necessary.
Necessary,
needed.
important, yeah. Essential to the meaning of the sentence, then we don't have to add no commas. So no commas should be used. So let me give you an example. So let's use examples.
Is
That's
it a
just
T
all right.
that speaks with the meaning?
the following is essential to the meaning. Thank you. Of the sentence, no comma should be used. Okay,
You
so
won't text us in a while.
I haven't texted you in a while. What do you mean?
Test.
Oh, test. That's tomorrow, you know. You have tests on tomorrow. Tomorrow, man. All right,
I
the
think that's
student.
not a newcomer.
So the student earning the highest. Sorry, the student earning the highest grade point average will receive a special reward. All right. Where's the past? But where's the participle phrase in this sentence?
Earning.
The phrase.
Oh. The student earning the highest grade.
No,
Average.
it's too much. Too much things. I just want the phrase.
Earning the highest grade point.
Yes.
The
Earning.
student earning
Earning.
Earning the highest grade point average.
Yes. Earning the highest grade point average. Right. So we have the participle right there. Earning. And then we have related words. So earning. That's our participle. Earning. What does earning tells us? Or who does earning refer to?
The student.
The student.
The student, right? So the student is going to earn. All right. And the highest grade point average gives us more information. It's related
Related
words.
words.
Yeah, related words. Now notice that there's no comma here, right? Because, you know, this is essential to the meaning of the sentence. Like, we don't have to say the student earning. No, it's like it flows right naturally. So we don't need no comma here. So the student earning the highest grade point average will receive a special reward. But here we have a participle phrase right here in the middle, earning the highest grade point average. Um, but it's so closely tied to the meaning of the sentence that we don't need no commas, right? It flows right naturally. The next one is the guy wearing the chicken costume is my cousin. So what is or where is the
Wearing the chicken costume.
yeah, wearing the chicken
Wearing the
costume
chicken costume and wearing is the
participle. So wearing is our participle. Highlighted in green. And then the chicken costume is our related words. So the times when, how about the times when commas are used? We saw that, or added. We saw that earlier. Um, we know that commas are added. Give me an example when commas need to be added.
when the
When the participle comes when?
is at the beginning of
Yeah,
the sentence.
yeah. When the participle comes at the beginning. We
This is
saw
the I
example.
keep forgetting the word participle. I keep saying when the thing come at the beginning. I keep forgetting it.
Yeah, it's something to get used to, honestly. So when the participle comes at the beginning of the sentence, another way that commas are added when um, we have non-essential information. So we no commas are added when we have essential information, information that is closely tied to the meaning of the entire sentence. Because if we were to move this phrase, we lose the entire sentence. The student will receive a special reward. Um, I mean, we wouldn't lose the entire sentence, but we lose a very important part of the sentence. Which student will receive a special reward? It's a specific student we're talking about, and this tells us exactly. Like this is like if we didn't have that, we still were wondering. Okay, you say the student, so that means you're talking about a specific student. What student is that? All right. So this is very important. It is very essential to the meaning of the sentence. He's earning the highest grade point average. The guy is my cousin. Which guy? Right? No, the one wearing the costume. That's my cousin. So you're very specific, and this is very central to the meaning of the sentence. Um, but when you don't have information that is, essential or very, very important to the meaning of the entire sentence, then you need to use commas. Like for example, let me give you this example. So let's say, let's use Nancy. Nancy, you ain't mad, right? I wonder if she's still there. Nancy watching
Woodbridge.
watching an old movie, drifted in and out of sleep. So here okay, let me just tell you, let me ask, what is the participle phrase?
Watching.
Watching an old movie.
Watching an old movie. So what is the participle?
Watching.
Watching.
Watching. And the related words is an old movie. But
An old
notice that, sorry, let me just highlight it in purple. Notice that this information we could remove it and still keep the sentence itself. Nancy drifted in and out of sleep, right? This is important information, but it's not as important as this information, earning the highest grade point average, right? Um, we say that Nancy, watching an old movie, drifted in and out of sleep. We say that this is non-essential information, all right? So it's like we given additional information, you know what I mean? We telling the readers more, right? But Nancy, watching an old movie, drifted in and out of sleep. Another example, where we where
Assumptions in that sentence is true.
yeah, yeah, it's very true, very, very true. All right, the next one is the church um, destroyed by a fire was never rebuilt. So here we given. Oh, by the way, what is the participle phrase?
Destroyed by a fire.
Destroyed by a
Destroyed
fire.
by a fire. Destroyed is the participle, and of course, by a fire is the additional information or the related words. So here we are given extra information about the church, right? This isn't, you know, we given extra information now, all right? And so here in this example, the writer considered this to be, not really essential information, not as essential as the ones above. And so, you know, we just put a put the two commas there. So the times when commas are added, number one, when the participle comes at the beginning of the sentence. Oh, I looking at the time. Oh wow, it's basically 9 o'clock. Um, Two, when we are given non-essential information, or I would say instead of saying non-essential information, additional information, information that we consider to be additional. Okay. Um, and the third way, or the third reason is and I'm not gonna get into the third way. We're just gonna leave it as that. All right, but there is a third way. There's a third reason. Anyway, it is basically time for us to end. We call it quits. Um, did we learn anything tonight?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah,
All right,
yeah.
that's good. That's good.
Korean.
Well, that's good. Glad that you learned something. Please make sure send in the notes before you go, and I'll see you on tomorrow. Tomorrow's our last class for the week. Could you believe it? Week 2 already almost end. So
Week
These
going
weeks
by
flying by.
fast.
yeah, the week's just sliding by. All right. So see you
Okay.
tomorrow. God spare life, and I'll send you the same time, and I'll send you the link and the recording of this video.
See you later, Mr. Davis.
Oh,
Okay.
yes,
All
yes,
right.
sir. Good night, bro.
Have a good one.
Bye.
All right, good
All
night.
right. Take care. Have a good night.
I'm revising the videos that you
Yeah.
set on your YouTube, right?
Yes, sir.
Because I wasn't like
How long
coming.
does it take you to
Most
do?
of the time, I wasn't actually present, so I'm like
Yeah.
going back over
Uh
the
huh.
videos that I missed.
Okay. Okay. So what to do, Seth? Send me notes as you go over them so that I can know how up to date you are.
Okay,
All right.
I'll try my best.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for trying. Um, Destiny. Good night.
Like, good night.
Good night.
But I don't feel like going to bed.
Good night, Destiny.